Imagine this. You wake up one morning to find that everything you have ever believed about right and wrong was decided for you long before you were born. The principles you live by, the things you condemn, the virtues you admire. All of them were whispered into your mind not by reason, not by truth, by forces that have been shaping humanity for centuries. You think you have a conscience, a moral compass guiding your choices. But what if that compass was never truly yours? What if, instead of guiding you, it was placed there to keep you in line? Consider a thought experiment. Imagine a child born into a world without a predefined sense of morality. No commandments, no societal norms, no whispered warnings of sin or virtue. How would they decide what is good and what is evil? Would they naturally arrive at the same conclusions as the world around them, or would they see morality for what it really is? A system, a construct, a means of control. For centuries, morality has been painted as an absolute force, an invisible law governing human existence. Religions, institutions, and cultures have all declared their own versions of right and wrong, punishing those who stray too far from the accepted path. But ask yourself, who decides what is moral? Why is something considered virtuous in one era, yet condemned in another? And more importantly, who benefits from these moral frameworks? History is filled with moments where morality has been used not to enlighten, but to suppress. The heretics burned at the stake, thinkers silenced for questioning authority, the revolutionaries branded as criminals, all in the name of a greater good, defined by those in power. Even today, you are rewarded for obedience and punished for dissent, though the mechanisms are more subtle. Social approval, guilt, shame. These are the new chains that bind you. But here's the most unsettling question of all. If you had been born in a different time, a different culture, with different teachings, would your morals still be the same? Or would you be defending a completely different set of values, convinced that they were the ultimate truth? Sit with that discomfort for a moment. Because if morality is not an eternal truth, but a construct shaped by power, then the real question isn't what is right, but rather who decides. And once you ask that, you might never see the world the same way again. This is only the beginning. To understand how deep this control runs, we must first uncover its origins. You were taught to believe that morality is the foundation of a just society, that without it, chaos would consume the world. What if morality was never about justice? What if, instead, it was about obedience? To understand this, we must look at history, not just the wars and revolutions, but the deeper psychological battles that have shaped the human mind itself. Friedrich Nietzsche warned us about this. He spoke of slave morality, a system of ethics designed not to empower individuals, but to make them servile. He argued that for centuries, the weak have sought to control the strong, not through force, but through morality itself. Societies demonized power, ambition, and self-interest, calling them vices, while elevating humility, submission, and suffering as virtues. Why? Because those who lacked power had to find a way to weaken those who possessed it. This is why the most dominant moral systems, religious, political, and cultural, share one common trait: they reward conformity. They promise salvation to those who obey and eternal suffering to those who question. They do not teach you to think for yourself, they teach you to comply. Carl Jung explored this control from another angle. He introduced the idea of the shadow, the hidden part of yourself that contains everything society tells you to repress. Your desires, your rage, your ambition, your unfiltered thoughts. From childhood, you were conditioned to suppress these aspects of yourself, told that they were evil or dangerous. Repressing them does not make them disappear. It only makes you weaker. You become divided, alienated from your true nature, living under an illusion of goodness while secretly suffocating under the weight of your own denied instincts. Think about the emotions you are not allowed to feel, the thoughts you are not allowed to voice. Who decided they were forbidden? Arthur Schopenhauer took this even further. He argued that morality is not about truth, but social utility. Societies define good and evil not based on some divine logic, but on what is most useful for maintaining order. What benefits the group is labeled as moral. What threatens the structure is labeled as immoral. This is why warriors are called heroes when they fight for their country, but murderers when they fight for themselves. It is why defiance is noble when directed at an enemy, yet dangerous when directed at one's own leaders. The labels shift, but the function remains the same. Morality exists to serve the needs of those in control. Aldous Huxley foresaw how this control would evolve. In Brave New World, he described a society where morality was not enforced through fear, but through pleasure and conditioning. People were trained from birth to accept their place, to crave entertainment over meaning, to love their own servitude. They did not need to be forced to obey because they wanted to. Huxley's warning is clear. The most powerful form of control is the one you don't even recognize as control. Now look around you. How much of your moral compass is truly your own? And how much of it was given to you, piece by piece, by parents, teachers, religious leaders, media, and society itself? More importantly, if morality is nothing more than a construct, then what happens to those who break free from it? The answer is far more disturbing than you think and extreme. You live your life believing that morality is a guiding force, a compass that leads you toward goodness. But what if it has been leading you somewhere else entirely? What if the very thing you trust to shape your choices has been silently shaping you into something you never intended to become? Look around. Society does not reward those who think for themselves. It rewards those who conform, those who obey without question, who kneel before the unspoken rules, who accept the definitions of good and evil without ever daring to ask who decided. The consequences of this unexamined morality run far deeper than simple obedience. 1. The self-denial trap. How morality turns you against yourself from childhood. You are conditioned to suppress parts of yourself in the name of morality. You are taught that anger is wrong, that ambition is selfish, that desire is sinful. And so, you bury them. You carve yourself into a smaller, more acceptable version of who you were meant to be. Carl Jung called this the formation of the shadow, the unconscious reservoir of everything you have been forced to repress. But the shadow does not disappear. It festers, grows restless, and finds ways to express itself in destructive ways. Through self-sabotage, through unexplainable resentment, through quiet despair. Have you ever wondered why so many people suffer from anxiety, depression, or a crippling sense of meaninglessness? It is because they are living according to a morality that is not their own. They have denied themselves so thoroughly that they no longer know who they are. You see it in the person who follows every rule yet feels empty inside. The one who spends their life trying to be good, but never feels at peace. They have mistaken obedience for virtue, and in doing so, they have abandoned themselves. 2. The guilt illusion, the weapon that keeps you in line. There is no prison stronger than the one you build inside your own mind. Guilt is the chain, the silent enforcer that keeps you shackled to the moral codes of society. It makes you afraid to question, afraid to step outside the lines, afraid to be anything but what you were told you should be. But where does guilt come from? It is not an errant truth. It is a conditioned response. You were not born feeling guilty for desiring power, for questioning authority, for craving more than what you were given. You were taught to feel guilty. Religious institutions have perfected this technique for centuries. They do not need to punish you themselves. They only need to instill the belief that an unseen force will judge you, that your own conscience will haunt you. You will suffer not because you did something wrong. but because you dared to challenge what was declared sacred. But here's the secret, Hong. If morality was truly universal, you wouldn't need to be trained to obey it. It would be instinctual. The very existence of guilt as a control mechanism reveals the truth. You were never meant to think for yourself. 3. The fear of the outsider. Why society hates those who break free. The moment you start questioning morality, something strange happens. People turn against you. They call you dangerous, reckless, even evil. Not because you have harmed anyone, but because you no longer believe what they believe. History is filled with those who dared to reject the moral structures of their time. Socrates, condemned for corrupting the youth. Galileo, silenced for challenging the church. Countless philosophers, revolutionaries, and thinkers who were cast out for daring to think differently. Why does society fear these people? Because they expose a terrifying truth: morality is fragile. It is not a divine law. It is a shared illusion, one that only survives as long as everyone agrees to believe in it. The moment someone steps outside of it, they reveal just how arbitrary it truly is. And so, the system does everything it can to pull you back in. It labels you selfish for prioritizing your own truth. It calls you arrogant for questioning sacred ideals. It punishes you, not because you are wrong, because you threaten the illusion that keeps everyone else obedient. The realization that changes everything. If morality can be shaped, controlled, and rewritten, then what does that mean for you? If you strip away the expectations of society, the teachings of religion, the silent pressure to conform, what remains? Who are you when there is no one left to tell you what to believe? That is the question that separates those who are free from those who remain bound. And once you ask it, you can never go back. The question is, can you handle the truth of what comes next? You have spent your entire life inside a carefully constructed illusion. Every moral lesson, every unspoken rule, every punishment for stepping out of line. It has all been part of a system designed to mold you into something useful. Not for yourself, but for society. Now you see the cracks in the foundation. Now you realize that morality was never about truth. It was about control. And once you see the strings, the only question that remains, will you cut them? Escaping the grip of morality is not about becoming lawless. It is not about abandoning all principles and embracing chaos. True rebellion is something far deeper, far more dangerous. It is about reclaiming the power to decide for yourself. 1. Destroying the inner judging, rewriting your own moral code. Right now, a voice inside your head tells you what is good and what is evil. It tells you to feel guilty when you question the rules, to feel ashamed when you desire something that has been labeled wrong. But where did that voice come from? That voice is not you. It is an echo of everything you were conditioned to believe. It is the product of teachers, parents, religious figures, media, and culture, all whispering to you for years, telling you who you should be. But here's the true thing: if morality were truly your own, you wouldn't need to be conditioned to follow it. So, how do you silence the voice? You begin by questioning it. Every time you feel guilt, ask yourself, who benefits from this guilt? Every time you feel shame, ask, who decided this was shameful? If the answer leads back to an external authority, you have found the chains that bind you. The next step is terrifying, but necessary. You must rewrite your own moral code. You must decide for yourself what is right and wrong, not because you were told, but because you have examined, questioned, and chosen. Most people will never do this. They will cling to the morality they were given, because questioning it means standing alone. It means becoming responsible for your own existence. It means no longer having the comfort of an external force telling you what to do. This is why true freedom is rare too. Embracing the shadow power of what you were told to reject. Carl Jung warned, used. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Your suppressed desires, your anger, your ambition, all the things morality told you to reject, are still inside you. And until you confront them, they will control you in ways you don't even realize. The mistake most people make is believing that rejecting morality means indulging in selfish destruction. True rebellion is not about acting on every dark impulse. It is about integrating them. It is about acknowledging that your ambition is not evil, your desires are not shameful, that your instincts are not inherently wrong. The more you suppress, the weaker you become. The more you integrate, more powerful you become. This is why society teaches you to fear your own darkness. Because if you accepted it, you would no longer be controlled by guilt. You would no longer feel the need to conform. You would no longer bow to the morality imposed upon you, and that terrifies those who rely on your obedience. 3. The cost of freedom. Why most people will never escape breaking free from morality comes with a price. You will become an outsider. Society does not reward those who think for themselves. It ostracizes them. If you choose to define your own morality, you will no longer fit neatly into the system. You will be misunderstood, labeled as dangerous, selfish, or immoral. History proves this over and over again. Greatest minds, Socrates, Nietzsche, Galileo, even Jesus, all challenged the morality of their time, and for that, they were condemned. To think for yourself is the ultimate sin in a world built on obedience. And yet, the few who dare to walk this path discover something no obedient person ever will: true autonomy. They are no longer bound by the expectations of others. They do not live for approval, nor do they fear rejection. They answer only to themselves. But the question remains, are you willing to pay the price? The moment of truth, you have a choice. You can continue living as you always have, following the moral code given to you, obeying the invisible rules that govern society. It will be safe. It will be comfortable. And you will never have to ask the hard questions. Or you can step into the unknown. You can dismantle the morality that was imposed upon you and build your own. You can embrace every part of yourself, even the ones you were taught to fear. You can live as a free individual, unbeholden to any force outside yourself. But if you choose this path, understand this: there is no turning back. Once you see the illusion for what it is, you can never unsee it. And that is the first step toward true liberation. But there is one final truth, one last revelation, that changes everything. Imagine standing at the edge of everything you once believed. The morality that shaped you, the rules that dictated your choices, the invisible walls that kept you in line. Now you see them for what they are: an illusion, a structure built to control, not to guide. Here's the final, most unsettling truthing: there was never any real morality to begin with. Morality is a construct, a shifting, self-contradictory system created not by gods or universal laws, but by men. What is considered good in one era is evil in another. What is sacred in one society is blasphemy in the next. The definitions are arbitrary, written and rewritten by those in power. And yet people cling to morality as if it is absolute, because without it, they feel lost. But here's what they don't realize: morality was never the source of meaning. Meaning comes from something deeper. Something that morality has been distracting you from all along. 1. Beyond good and evil, the path to true freedom. Nietzsche understood this. He warned that morality, as it exists in society, is nothing more than a tool used to control the strong by the weak. But his solution was not to become immoral. It was to transcend morality altogether, to step beyond the rigid labels of good and evil and instead ask, what is true to me? This is the path of the Bermensch, the individual who no longer seeks external validation, no longer bends to imposed ideals, but instead creates their own values. Not as an act of rebellion, as an act of self-creation. Because in the end, morality is a poor substitute for something far greater: authenticity. 2. The liberation of the self. What happens when you take back control, when you free yourself from morality? You do not become reckless. You do not become a monster. In fact, you become things society fears even more: a sovereign individual. A person who thinks for themselves. A person who chooses their actions not based on fear of punishment or desire for reward, but based on their own deeply examined principles. This is the greatest paradox of all. The moment you stop trying to be good, you become something even greater. You become real. And with that realization, guilt disappears. Shame evaporates. The invisible chains dissolve. You are no longer a prisoner of the morality imposed upon you. 3. You are free. The burden of freedom. Why most will never take this step, but with this freedom comes responsibility. And this is why most people will never embrace it. Because when you no longer rely on morality to tell you what to do, when you can no longer fall back on societal approval or religious doctrine, there is no one left to guide you but yourself. No heaven or hell to dictate your choices. No authority to validate your decisions. No script to follow. Most people cannot bear that weight. They would rather remain in the comfort of their moral illusions, letting others tell them how to live, what to value, who to be. They would rather stay in the prison than risk the uncertainty of the open road. But a few, a rare few, will step beyond it. They will realize that morality was never about justice. That true meaning is something they must create for themselves. And in that moment, they will understand something that the rest of the world never will. They were never meant to be controlled. They were meant to be free. The final question: so now, you stand at the edge. Will you retreat back into the safety of the morality you were given, back into the comfort of rules you never chose? Or will you take the step that most fear? Will you reclaim the right to decide for yourself? Because in the end, morality is not what defines you. The courage to break free is. The question is, are you ready?